Woof.
Hello, howdy, and welcome to this YouTube video with your host and just a simple tater farmer. It's Tater Dawg. In today's video, we have part 2 of a series I started entitled A Tater's Thoughts, or you could even call it A Tater's Best. And in that part 1, we went over the best premium and the best tech tree battleship at each tier from tiers 5 to 10, with also a few less than 5 tier ships mentioned as honorable mention or callouts. So today we're going to continue that series by talking about the same thing except with cruisers. So we're going to be looking at the best tech tree and the best premium cruiser at each tier from 5 to 10, and then if there's anything else in tier 3 and 4 that we feel is worthy, we will mention it there. Well, that being said, let's start out right now with the honorable mentions. We're at tier 3 and 4. I don't have many cruisers here, but there's really one class here, and there's 3 boats. It's really roughly the same thing between the 3, but from a tech tree standpoint, the tier 3 St. Louis is a wonderful boat, especially if you're lucky enough to have this Igor camo that goes with it that came from, I think, one of the Halloween events or some such. And the sister ship to that, which is very similar, the Russian tier 3 cruiser, the Bogatyr. They're both pretty much firepower beasts. They are slow cruisers. They chug along. It's kind of like a dreadnought cruiser in a way. However, I will tell you the St. Louis has a little more armor than the Bogatyr does. And over at the premium side of things, we have the Charleston, which is in all respects, it's just a premium St. Louis. It's the same boat. The only real benefit that you get is if you want a Seal Club at tier 3, you can throw your high tier American cruiser captain on there and not be strapped potentially with a lower point captain. So that's what there is at tier 3. You won't see me playing any other cruisers at tier 3 should I be playing one at that tier. And as for tier 4 goes, we're just going to say that there are none worthy. Not a fan of any of the tier 4 cruisers. You can see I really don't have anything even in my port except for the De Ruyter. So that should tell you something. So let's stop there. We can move on to the main event here, the main show, and we're going to start with tier 5, and we're going to look at tech tree boats. So let's go up there. Now, again, I don't have much in my port, but at tier 5, realistically, at the tech tree side, not much there. Not much there at all. Not a big fan of anything, so we're not going to choose a best boat at the tech tree. But we will give an honorable mention to the Furitaka, which is a decent cruiser. You've got pretty long range torps. You've got 203 millimeter guns, and the kicker is, I believe that this thing actually has just a little bit of armor on it. So you got some 25 millimeter armor down the side and a 76 millimeter strip. Now, you'll still get obliterated if you show side, but you got just a tiny bit more armor than some of the other cruisers do. So that is a benefit. Now, if we switch over to the premium side of things, if it will let me do so, we do have a clear choice here. There is only one cruiser I play at tier 5. It is the original glass cannon, or one of the original glass cannons, tier 5 Russian, I guess you would call this a heavy cruiser technically, the Kirov. Main thing to remember is that the guns on this thing are amazing. It has 180 millimeter Russian guns. You don't need to know much other than that. This can be a very strong boat. It's got a very long range for tier 5 cruiser, and it has a spotter plane. And if I'm not mistaken, you can get the range on this thing out pretty close to 20 kilometers with the spotter plane. So you can just rain HE down, or if you can catch cruisers broadside, you can really hurt them bad with the AP. Outside of that, most of the rest of the boats at this tier either aren't good or they're just a big citadel wrapped in gasoline-soaked paper armor. So at least this one, which is still kind of that, at least it has some great guns strapped to the top of that citadel. So just don't get shot at by battleships. If you're good at speed juking or just basically, playing at range and throttle jockeying WASD hacks, you can do well in open water with this ship, but you will take damage when you get hit. It's just the way it is. As far as honorable mentions, it's a nope. There are none. So let's go over now to Tier 6, and we're going to look at the Tech Tree ships to start off. Kind of the same thing here. We're just going to kind of say the Tech Tree ships are meh. None of them are horrible, but none of them particularly stand out for me either. But what we will do is we will give a shout out for a couple of boats. One of them I have had, but it's not currently in my port. But the first one we'll talk about is the Budione. I actually played this thing for the first time in a while the other night, and it's a pretty nasty boat. It's got a pretty fast reload, 9 guns, long range, and a good fire starter. It's a pretty good boat for the tier. Like I said, it just doesn't stand out enough for me to call it a best boat. So there's that one. The other ship I will be talking about is the Nuremberg, which has just an insane reload and can throw out a ton of HE spam, as well as has good AP on it. So you've got to watch out for those things if they're firing AP on or at you. But the problem is it's really so much of a glass cannon that, again, I can't recommend it as a best ship, not even for a tater like me. So that's kind of the extent of the Tier 6. Let's swap over to the premium side, because there is one great ship here, and we're going to follow along what we did at Tier 5. The ship for me at this tier, it's basically the progression from the Kirov at Tier 5 is the Molotov. Again, you've got a long range, you've got great guns, you have a spotter plane that gets your range pretty far out there for a cruiser, and again, AP that can hurt cruisers, and HE that can just set everything else on fire or make its day miserable. But again, very glass cannon. If you're positioned wrong, you will get punished. The other ship that I'll give an honorable mention to, and it's just because you can't ignore its contribution. If anybody remembers Tier 6 clan battle season a few seasons ago, that would be the Graf Spee. I mean, this is really a super cruiser at Tier 6. You've got like way more health than anything else that the tier has. You have a heal. You've got usable torpedoes at 8 kilometers. The one thing that you don't have is the best DPM, but you do have Scharnhorst guns. So you've got 283 millimeter guns on this thing, and the AP can hit pretty hard. You just, because of the reload and the being German guns, you just don't do a lot HE speaking, but it's basically there for a good tanky cruiser. And we saw what happened in the clan battle season when teams were running 3 and 4 of these things in some cases. And then it was banned the next go around. So keep in mind, not a bad boat. So that will do it for our Tier 6. Now let's move on to Tier 7. We're going to start with Tech Tree ships, and a couple that stand out at this tier, at Tier 7, I'm going to basically just give them they're going to be co-best ships, co-besties, so to speak. and there aren't really even going to be any honorable mentions. But there is the Fiji, and then the other ship that I do not have in my port currently, and I'll bring the Fiji up, is the Zara. And Tier 7 is where the Italian cruisers start to get good. They're not really good yet, but they're starting to get good, and the Zara can really punish DDs hard, and it can sit at range. It's an excellent kiting boat, and it can basically blap cruisers, battleships with its SAP, and can be a really nasty little bugger to deal with. So we're going to put that there. But the Fiji is also a great ship. Similar to its sister ship, we're talking about a British smoke cruiser here with 12 guns. It fires AP only, but that AP does hit good. I believe it's got the better, quicker fuse times and such, maybe even the improved pin angles, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, don't hesitate to correct me in the comments. But it has smoke. It has, let's just look at its toolbox here. It has smoke, it has hydro, and it has a heel. Now, it is a British cruiser, and we know that they're incredibly fragile. But the one thing that it does have that helps it out when you're sitting in smoke is it does have torpedoes, and that kind of makes the enemy think twice before trying to rush you down in your smoke. And whenever we talk about the premium side, I'll talk about the sister ship to this, and this is one benefit that I think the Fiji has over that ship. So Fiji is great. Love it. Let's go over to the premium side, and it should come as absolutely no surprise that the pick for the best ship at the tier is the original OG OP cruiser Belfast. This thing has just a ridiculous toolbox. One thing it does not get is a heel. So when you compare it to its sister ship, the Fiji, two places it suffers is it doesn't have a heel and it doesn't have torpedoes. And while the Belfast is awesome, I do find that a lot of players, if they have the health, they'll just charge you down in your smoke, and they just have to get within something like 5.9 kilometers. Basically, they have to get within your smoke firing penalty to see you, because you can't really do anything other than shoot at them. You do have hydro, which is great for a smoke camping boat. You've got that good British acceleration, which can help you dodge torpedoes should you spot them with your hydro. Again, the smoke, and you've got 8.5 kilometer radar, which actually I believe has been nerfed over time. But you do have a radar, so you can catch somebody that's trying to sneak up on you in your smoke and have a chance to do some damage to them, especially those pesky little DDs. But this is definitely a awesome ship. You can also island camp it and lob shells, start fires. Can't say enough good things about it. There's a reason it's one of the best, most OP cruisers really in the game. Now, as far as honorable mention, Tier 7 starts to get interesting here. So let's look at honorable mention in some areas. So the Russian cruiser Lazo. Now, this has 152 millimeter guns, but it's a good fire starter. And the gimmick with this boat is it's similar to the Shores, but the gimmick with it is you have a long range and you have a fast reloading spotter plane. So basically, you're never going to be without a spotter plane for more than just a few seconds, because that's how fast it reloads. When one spotter plane lands, you've got the next one ready to go in just a matter of something like 5 seconds, maybe. I don't know the exact time, but it's negligible. So you can really set at a long distance with these Russian guns and pelt people with HE. You've got 12 of them. They reload fast. It's a really pesky little bugger. It is fragile, like all of the Russian light cruisers and most of the light cruisers in the game. So you do need to be careful about getting spotted. You can open water gunboat in it some if you're good, again, with the WASD hacks. Just something to keep in mind. It's a wonderful ship. I'd highly recommend it. The other ships that are interesting at this tier that I can give a shout out to are kind of, in a way, sister ships. You have the German cruisers, the München and the Weimar. So the Munchkin here, as we'll call it, is 8 fast reloading guns. So you have the 150 millimeter guns, but it's a 5-second reload. So it's faster reload, it has a longer range than the Weimar. I personally tend to prefer this boat because of the increased range, but that's just the way it is for me. Another strong ship, the sister ship that was kind of released at the same time, is the Weimar. Reloads a little longer, range is a little shorter, but you have 12 150 millimeter guns. So again, both these boats are pretty good open water gunboats. You can, like all cruisers, try and utilize cover to help you out, but these are just great ships, and would recommend any of those at this tier. Now let's move up to tier 8, and we're going to take a look at the Tech Tree ships first. Now tier 8 is where the Italian cruisers really start to get good. They are hitting their stride by tier 8. And the Amalfi is a very, very annoying boat to deal with. You've got 9 203 millimeter guns. You do have SAP on this thing, and you can hurt DDs bad, as well as do a great job kiting. It's really maneuverable. You've got torpedoes that are slower but longer range, so you can do all kinds of things. Plus you've got that exhaust smoke that you can just pop and go invisible, as long as somebody's not within your gun firing, your smoke firing penalty. But a great boat. It is my pick for the best at the tier. You've also got a couple of other boats that are up there for a definite honorable mention. That would be the Baltimore, one of the few boats in the game that I believe can still stealth radar, kind of. I believe there's a 10 kilometer radar, and it has a 9.9 concealment, but great heavy AP shells on this American heavy cruiser. Decent reload on it. Fairly tanky, so you can pull off some good things with the Baltimore. Excellent cruiser to have on your side. The other one is the tier 8 Russian cruiser, the Chapayev. This thing's got 12 152s. It's the Russian laser guns, and it does a phenomenal job of kiting. The shell arcs are a little flat being Russian, so island camping it doesn't do as well, but you can still utilize islands for cover if you keep some distance from them to be able to get your shells off of them. But a great boat. You've got that 12 kilometer Russian radar that lasts a decent amount of time, so nasty boat to have to deal with around the caps. And if you're one of the Russian or French DDs with the really fast speed that you rely on, well, the rail guns here kind of make up for that. So these can be a little bit difficult for you to deal with. So that's one benefit the Russian cruisers, radar cruisers I should say, have, is they can deal with some of those DDs that are harder to hit because you've got such flat shell arcs. So great selection at tier 8. There are some other decent cruisers, but these are my picks and are my best for the Tech Tree. Let's move over to the premium side of things at tier 8. Now here's where it gets kind of interesting. There are some decent boats at this tier, but my pick easily for this tier is the American heavy cruiser, the Congress. All I need to say is that this is an Alaska. It's an Alaska with a couple of barrels missing. So you got 7 barrels instead of 9. You got a longer reload. So basically, let's just say this is an Alaska with less DPM, but it's still got those hard-hitting AP shells, so you can really alpha strike cruisers with it. and it's tanky as crap, and it's a tier lower, and it has the same hull as the Alaska from the best I can tell. So that makes it even more tanky than the Alaska to some extent, because you're seeing tier 6 ships potentially sometimes. You're seeing a slightly lower pool of ships. So great ship. You've got the radar, all of the same tools that you've got with the Alaska. So if you like the Alaska, you need to find a way to get this boat. It comes highly recommended from the Tater. Outside of that, as far as honorable mentions, there are 2 ships that I would honorable mention. One is the tier 8 Russian cruiser, the Kutuzov. Now, essentially, this is, I would say it's similar to the Chapayev. It has similar guns to the Chapayev. You've got 12 of them with a good reload, decent fire chance, but you have a very long range, and this is a smoke cruiser. So you're sacrificing your radar for that. So you sacrifice your radar for smoke, basically, but you get these long range fire starting guns that you can just sit and just pelt people with HE all game long. It's not available anymore, but if you're lucky enough to have it, congratulations. If you ever get a chance at any special containers or a special purpose or purchase somewhere that Wargaming offers, and you want to spend money, this would be a good recommended purchase. The other boat that I'm going to recommend because I like the way it plays and I have enjoyed playing it, if I can find it, here we go, is the American heavy cruiser, the Anchorage. Now, the Anchorage has 203 millimeter guns. It has 12 of them, and it is a smoke cruiser. And I have had very good luck with this ship. It's in doing a lot of damage with it. It's the guns are decent. The reload's a little long, but you can sit in smoke with this, and you have that American smoke, and as long as you're not worrying about torpedoes being launched, you can do a good job of pelting people with HE, and you still got that good heavy American AP that you can fire at broadsides to increase your damage output, or BLAP Citadel cruisers. So I've enjoyed that. There's some other boats at the tier that would probably make some other people's list, but these are the particular ones that made my list for tier 8. So now let's bounce over to tier 9 and take a look at the Tech Tree ships. And we're going to start off with my pick for best at the tier, and that is going to be the Italian cruiser, the Brindisi, following the same pattern I had from tier 8. The Brindisi gets more guns than the tier 8. You've got 12. Again, you've got the SAP. You have the exhaust smoke that covers you up no matter how fast you're going, and you can follow your friendly DD towards the cap and kind of make a turn into a kiting position, and as soon as your friendly spots the enemy DD, you can smoke up and just blap him with your SAP, and then continue to do so as long as your guy keeps him spotted. Just a tactic I like to use sometimes, but you can do other stuff too. You can play this thing as a kiter and just rain SAP on cruisers, battleships, DDs, whatever. Or you can, you've got a little bit of armor on this thing, so you can pull off some weird tricks where you go to your smoke and just charge at enemy battleships or whatever and launch your torps. The torp angles are incredible on this thing. They will go very far forward, so you can approach other enemy ships and you can stay well angled and still launch your torps. So just a interesting tactic that can be used. One of the things that just gives it the extra something to make it the best cruiser from a Tater's perspective, at least at the tier. Now, as far as honorable mentions, I will go with a boat that I enjoyed very much at the tier. and that is the French cruiser, the St. Louis. The DPM with HE is okay on the boat, but you have that reload boost, which means you can just kick it into high gear when you get at the right range on a battleship and just rain HE on him and start fires, or on multiple ships if you get the chance. So it's a good fire starter, awesome kiting boat. You have a speed boost, which is typical to the French. So these things will go upwards of near 40 knots with a speed flag and your boost enabled. And just a really good ship for kiting, starting fires, WASD hacks, and that sort of thing. Highly recommend this one, or this line to go up. It gets really good, the top, from tier 7 or 8 on up. Now, there's some other good cruisers at the tier, but these are really my picks for the boats I go to. They're just the best in my eyes. But let's go to tier 9. Or I'm sorry, we're already at tier 9. Let's go to the premium ships at tier 9, I should say. And at tier 9, I don't have a lot of premium ships in my port, but there's only one pick. There's only one pick at tier 9, and you know what it is. It's the Alaska. Just an absolute beast. I mean, the thing's almost as tanky as a battleship. You've got 9 305 millimeter guns, and you can citadel broadside battleships from a decent range with this thing. So nobody wants to show you broadsides, and this thing is an absolute cruiser discombobulation unit, would be the best way to say that, because if a cruiser shows you side, it doesn't matter if it's a heavy cruiser or a light cruiser, that heavy AP will hurt it badly and possibly even dev strike it. So excellent boat. And again, you got a good toolbox with it. You got hydro and radar and a hill. You can't go wrong. And then you add the tankiness to it. It's pretty hard to citadel, although I seem to be able to be good at getting it citadeled for some reason. But still a great ship. No complaints recommending that, or no reservations recommending this to anybody. If there's something that comes up, for whether it be the Alaska B or the regular Alaska, it's currently not available to my knowledge, but you get a chance at it and you don't mind spending money and throwing money at it, I would recommend this one as well. As far as any honorable mentions at tier 9, it's kind of a nope from me. So nothing there. So let's bounce back over to the Tech Tree ships and go up to tier 10. So at tier 10, there's one ship that I let set as a port queen for quite some time, and then suddenly I played it a couple of times and realized how good it was, and it is now my pick for the best tier 10 cruiser at the tier. And there's a bunch of good cruisers at tier 10. You really can't say that any of them are horrible. But my pick for best tier 10 Tech Tree cruiser is the British technically heavy cruiser, the Goliath. You've got 12 234 millimeter guns. Now, I personally play this boat as a range modded boat instead of a reload mod, but you can do whatever with your play style. But it's an awesome open water gunboating kiting ship, and it can just set fires right and left. You've got a huge fire chance with the HE on these guns, and it's British, so even the HE hits hard. It's not uncommon to get 5, 6, 7, 8,000 damage on a battleship if you hit him with a decent amount of shells. This is the boat that I set my personal warships damage record in overall for the entire game. Beat out my record that I previously had with the tier 9 Musashi. So just something to think about. I would recommend this line. It's the skill floor is not too low. It's a moderate skill floor, but if you're comfortable with a kiting ship and and using the rudder and throttle, this ship will serve you well, and it actually can bounce a lot of shells too. So keep that in mind. Now, I know everybody thought that I was probably going to pick a different ship for the best at the tier, but I didn't. And the reason I didn't pick it is because I have difficulty playing it for some reason that I can't explain, but it's going to be in my honorable mentions. So if I go down my honorable mentions, well, we'll start off with most everybody's favorite OP Tier 10 Tech Tree cruiser, and that's the Petropavlovsk. This is the boat that replaced the Moskva, and if you could believe it, it has even better guns than the Moskva. This thing can just citadel the crap out of everything. There's no other way to put it. The AP is amazing. And the HE is not bad. So this thing is extremely tanky. You can look at it and see it has such a low freeboard, it can be hard to hit. So you can sit this thing nose in and it becomes very difficult to deal with. You can push with this thing like you would push with a Russian battleship. It's just ridiculous. So highly recommended line to go up. If you're grinding lines, Russian heavy cruisers is one of the places to go, because that's ships that you're typically going to be able to use in clan battles all the time. So that's a line that I would highly recommend. Next recommendations are going to go to the original HE spammer from a long time ago. This boat is old, has been around a long time, but the Tier 10 American Heavy Cruiser Des Moines, with some of the new slight armor tweaks that were changed with cruisers a while back. I think the Des Moines got maybe an extra millimeter of bow and stern armor, but so you can angle it and bounce a few shells here and there, but it's still better as an island camper HE spammer. However, it still has that American heavy AP that you've heard me talking about already, and woe be unto any cruiser that shows you broadside, especially if it's within 10 or 12 kilometers, because the amount of shells this thing pumps out with something like a 5 to 5.5 second reload. The reload on this ship is what makes it go. This is still one of the better cruisers in the game. It's still viable in clan battles almost always. You can't totally go wrong with it. So it's that reload that really is the gimmick for this ship. So highly recommend that one. And to keep in the vein of my previous couple of tiers, the other honorable mention goes to the Venezia. And this is just yet another progression of the ship. Now you get 15 guns in 5 triple turrets. So you can send 15 SAP shells out at poor little enemy DDs or cruisers or battleships. Again, highly maneuverable, decent armor, great torp arcs. Just so much going for this ship. Very difficult to deal with when it's in a kiting position, because it's tough to get solid hits on between staying angled, having the armor, and the really good rudder shift and everything. Just really difficult to deal with. So another line that is highly recommended and is really good at tier 8, 9, and 10 is this Italian cruiser line. Now, let us switch over to the tier 10, and I can't really call it premium ships because, as I've mentioned before, they're actually entitled special ships, because, as I mentioned, Warships said that they would never sell premium tier 10 ships, so they're not. They just call them special ships. So, well, what are we going to recommend here? Well, gee, I wonder what ship you recommend as the best ship at the tier. Well, it should come as no shock that the Stalingrad, the original stupidly OP ship, which has been power crept a little bit till this point, but is still phenomenally good. The accuracy of these guns is ridiculous. It has way more Sigma than anything else in the game, something like a 2.6 Sigma, I think. And they are 305 millimeters, and they have insane Russian pin. So you can be citadeling battleships from long range with these things. So nasty ship to deal with. Pretty tanky nose in, but you can get hurt pretty bad if you show side in it. But still, this is a great ship at the tier. If you get the steel, that's one of the first ships that I would recommend going after. If you want a ship especially to help out your clan in clan battles. Outside of this ship, the place that I would put my honorable mentions, one would be the Moskva, which is the forerunner to both. It's kind of a baby Stalingrad in a way, but the forerunner to the Petro. Incredibly vulnerable if you show side. A broadside Moskva will draw fire from every battleship on the map because it's so easy to citadel. But if you sit nose in, this thing is stupidly tanky, and you can actually sit nose into a Stalingrad, and because of your DPM, you can burn them down before they can get rid of you almost every time, barring some kind of a lucky hit. So still a great boat. The AP is still ridiculously good and can citadel most anything. So highly recommended ship. Would not have, again, no compunctions about recommending this to anybody. And of course, the last ship, since we gave an honorable mention to the Des Moines, it's only right that you give an honorable mention to the Salem as well. So basically, the Salem is a Des Moines. I think what happens though is you trade some radar range. You still have radar, but you trade the longer range, the 10-kilometer radar, I think, for an 8.5-kilometer. But in exchange, you get, I'll call it a super heel. I don't know the exact specs on it, if it's as good as the British, but pretty close. So you get an awesome hill on this boat. You still have those same fast-firing, auto-reloading 203 millimeter guns that can just burn you down, or they can just AP you to death if you're a crew. Well, even a battleship, anything showing you a broadside that is not too far away, you can really hurt it bad. So that's it. So that's basically a Tater's thoughts. That's my recommendation of all the best cruisers at tiers 5 to 10, both on the Tech Tree and the Premium side. I should put a suffix on this video by saying that cruisers are probably my least favorite class. I much prefer playing battleships, or really my favorite class is DDs, destroyers. So this list was a little harder for me to make. It may be a little bit more wonky than what most people would make, but these are the ships that I feel are the best, that fit my style, and would be interested to hear any caveats you have, any comments you have that you want to put in regarding ships that I didn't put on the list at all, or ships that you thought shouldn't have been best, or should or shouldn't have been best or honorably mentioned. I would love to hear it. Discussion is great. So that being said, appreciate the watch. Everybody have a great day, or hope you're having a great day, and have a good rest of the day. Hope you will stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to see notifications of future videos, just ring the bell. Until next time, Tater Dawg says, woof.